Now that we have our connection and schema artifacts, we're ready to complete configuration of the data flow. We'll open the data flow and select the read file operator. And in its properties panel, we'll select the connection and schema. Now, since the connection already points to the file system location with the file we want to read, we simply need to click the button and immediately it opens the browser to that file system location and we can select the file to read. Now, whether the file has quotes or not is irrelevant for this application, so we'll leave the default selection. But what we do need to do is tell expressor that it should skip the first file record in the file because that is the header row. Now we select the transform operator and open the rules editor. Now the rules editor is a totally new approach to coding within Expressor 3.4. Previously you had the transform editor into which you entered a code, but the rules editor has a new approach whereby attribute propagation will help you move data from the input record to the output record. On the left-hand side, you see the structure of the record coming into the transform operator. We have the four attributes that were described in our schema, and notice that the type of the place attribute is integer, as we specified in the schema file. On the right-hand side, we have the current structure of the record that will be emitted from the transform operator. Notice that its four attributes are identically named to the input attributes, and the right-facing arrow in front of each attribute indicates that attribute propagation will transparently and in the background copy the value from each incoming attribute to the identically named attribute in the output. Now for many attributes, for example our place and political party attribute, this is exactly what we want. But for the first name and last name attributes, we really don't want to transfer those values. Rather, we want to concatenate them into a full name. So we select those attributes and click the Block Transfer button. Notice that the attributes have been removed from the output record. Now we add a new attribute to the output. We're going to call this attribute full name and it will be the string type. Once we add this attribute to the output record, we have the ability to reorder the attributes in the record. So we'll move the full name attribute upwards. Now the attributes describe the structure of the record that will be emitted by this operator. And since we feel that this record type is very important, we're going to save this structure as a composite type, which can be reused in this or other applications. And in fact, in this application, we're going to use this composite type to create the schema for the write file operator. Now we need to apply the business rule to create the full name attribute. We simply select the incoming attributes and drag them to the outgoing attribute, and expressor enters a rule expression box. Now in the rule expression box on the left-hand side, you see what are the input parameters to this business rule. And on the right-hand side, you see what is the output parameter to this business rule. And notice the mappings from the incoming and outgoing attributes. Now the names of the attributes and their corresponding parameters do not need to be the same, but of course they will be if you simply drag them into the business rule expression editor. So now that we've set up the expression rule, we can actually enter our code. And we're going to use the string concatenate function to join the first name and last name into a single value that will apply to the full name parameter. So we enter the rule, and then we can return the expression editor box to its original size so that you can see how the rule is configured and the parameters are connected to the various attributes. And this creates the business rule that will be executed for each record that comes in to this operator. The place and political party attributes will be transferred in the background, and the full name attribute will be initialized as part of the application. And you can see that our composite type has in fact been saved into the project. Now we select the write file operator and start to configure it. The connection is the same. In other words, we're going to write the output file to the same directory from which we read the input file. But now we need to create a schema for the output record. And in this case, we're going to create that schema from the composite type that describes the output from the transform operator. We select the composite type, and the schema is created for us. And now we can complete configuration of the write file operator. The only thing we need to do is enter the name of the file that will be written. Now in this case, we'll leave the quotations on, and we will do the checkbox to enter a header row. We could also select the checkbox that will put a timestamp into the name of the output file. So our application is complete. We can save it and run the application and review the output file. From the log, you can see that 44 records were processed, which is appropriate, and the output has the full information we were after, including the concatenated names of each president.